Thank you, Chair Simpson, Ranking Member Pingree. Cody Desautel. I'm the president of the Intertribal Timber Council, and I also serve as the executive director for the Colville tribe, where I'm also a member. My testimony today will focus on why forest and fire management funding is critical to tribal nations and their people. Tribal forests are managed for wildlife habitat, aquatic resources, and sources of food and medicine critical to the cultural identity of Indian people. Management of Indian forests also generates significant revenue for tribal governments, which supports essential governmental services such as education, social services, and law enforcement. However, the 2023 Indian Forest Management Assessment Team Report, or IFMAT, identified disproportionate funding for tribal forest and wildfire management, which has contributed to harvest levels dropping from 730 million board feet in 1991 to 342 million board feet in 2019, which was the lowest harvest level since the Depression era. Based on the IFMAT report findings, BIA forestry is funded about 1/3 per acre compared to the Forest Service and receives 1/14 of what the BLM in Oregon receives. Fire management funding for preparedness and fuels has similar discrepancies based on the IFMAT report. In addition to the funding shortfalls, tribes are also faced with the uncertainty associated with the reorganization of the fire functions within the Department of Interior with the formation of the new Wildland Fire Service. While we're optimistic the Wildland Fire Service provides an opportunity to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of fire management within Interior, we enter 2026 with a number of unknowns and light winters in the west setting up for a potentially dangerous fire season this summer. The IFMAT report also documents that BIA forestry funding, when factoring in inflation, has declined by 21% over the last 30 years. During that same 30-year period, Indian Forest Trust lands have increased from 15.6 to 19.3 million acres, meaning that on a per-acre basis, funding in real terms has declined by almost 36% over the last 30 years. The result of this inequity is catastrophic for tribes. The IFMAT report found reduced funding to BIA for forest management resulted in $400 million in foregone timber revenue to tribes between 2010 and 2019. In addition to the foregone timber revenue, uncharacteristic wildfires have caused additional unquantified losses of timber, wildlife habitat, and aquatic and cultural resources. Those impacts and losses could have been mitigated or reduced with fully funded and staffed programs for tribes. The Colville tribe, for example, has lost over 1 billion board feet of timber since 2015, with 900,000 acres of our 1.4 million acre reservation burning just in the last 10 years. The current day market value of that billion board feet of timber is about $500 million. To achieve budget parity between the BIA, Forest Service, and BLM, the IFMAT report found it would require an additional $96 million per year for BIA forestry and $42 million in additional wildfire funding. Unfortunately, since the report was completed, funding for BIA forestry has been reduced from $66 million in 2023 to $62 million in FY25 and 26. BIA managed forests have historically produced more than 400 million board feet annually on 19.3 million acres, which is more volume than BLM produced on 3 times as many acres. More than 50% of all timber produced from the Department of Interior lands comes from Indian forests. Importantly, tribal forests achieve this productivity at a fraction of the cost. By prioritizing funding for tribal forests, federal appropriations can be allocated where timber is produced most economically. You'll need the greatest return on investment for taxpayers while also supporting tribal self-determination and economic sovereignty. In light of the President's executive order on increased timber production and the proven efficiency of tribal forests, we asked Congress to allocate additional appropriations to a pilot program. Specifically, we request that the committee set aside $20 million in the Interior Appropriations Bill to be distributed jointly by the Secretaries of Ag and Interior to agencies on a competitive basis based on their assessment of where timber sales can be generated the fastest, at the lowest cost to the federal government, and best utilized by the forest products manufacturing sector. Increasing BIA forestry funding and capacity will also allow tribes to increase their use of cross-boundary authorities such as the Tribal Forest Protection Act, Good Neighbor Authority, and shared stewardship agreements, which we've seen states start to enter into in the last year. Similarly, those included in the Fix Our Forests Act. The ITC requests that Congress prioritize funding for Indian forests in its 2027 appropriations bill. We understand the important competing priorities that BIA has, as you've heard from the other testimony today. But we also want to recognize that part of the solution to the social issues that plague Indian country can be addressed by providing Indian people with the opportunity to practice their culture and traditions in the forest that we manage. And thank you.